that feeling like you're completely trapped, just desperate for any way out. That's kind of the feeling the Black Phone taps into immediately.
It really does. And today, yeah, we're diving into that 2022 film. It's based on a Joe Hill short story, a really gripping one.
And for our deep dive, we're leaning on a pretty thorough critical review of the movie itself. Our goal here really is to unpack what makes this film click beyond just, the jump scares. It's got this mix, psychological terror, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
And these supernatural bits that are genuinely unsettling, plus this very personal story running through it.
Exactly.
So think of this as like your shortcut to getting the film's core ideas, its impact, whether you've seen it yet or maybe you're just curious.
Right. A way to get the key takeaways without having to sift through everything yourself.
Okay, so the movie throws us into 1970s suburban America, and right away it just feels uneasy.
It does. And the review we looked at really points out how deliberate that is, that gritty, uncomfortable reality. It talks about the production design, the worn-down houses, those old TVs flickering with emergency broadcasts. It's all very specific.
It's not just wallpaper, is it? It adds to the mood.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It actually makes that feeling of isolation much stronger. Like communication was harder then, escaping was harder. It really grounds the threat.
Totally. Makes the whole trapped feeling way more real. So in the middle of all this, we've got our main character, Finney Shaw.
Right, Finney. He starts off, pretty shy, maybe a bit withdrawn, but you quickly see there's this resourcefulness under the surface.
And then the nightmare scenario happens. He gets abducted.
By this masked guy known only as the Grabber.
Yeah. And that's where the real claustrophobia kicks in. Finney is locked in this soundproof basement, and then he finds it. The Black Phone. Disconnected.
Yeah, the title object. It's such a core piece of the narrative.
Yeah.
A plot device, basically.
But a creepy one.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Because this dead phone, it starts ringing. And it's the spirits, the ghosts of the Grabber's previous victims on the line.
Which sounds purely supernatural, but it's more than that.
Exactly. These calls aren't just like atmospheric scares. They give Finney actual practical information, clues he desperately needs to survive.
It's a clever way to blend those elements, I think. And while Finney's down there fighting for his life, we have this parallel story going on topside with his sister Gwen.
Right, Gwen. She has these psychic dreams, and she's absolutely determined to find Finney.
The review we read liked that dual narrative structure.
Yeah, it mentions that parallelism is satisfying. You're seeing Finney's ordeal, but also the outside world trying to reach him, even if it's through, psychic dreams.
Keeps the hope alive, in a way.
It does. Though the review does kind of hedge its bets a bit, saying Gwen's abilities might, stretch believability for some viewers. It can feel a little convenient at times.
That's fair. Sometimes those elements can feel like an easy out, but it adds suspense for sure. Okay, let's dig into the characters, because the acting is huge here. Finney, played by Mason Thames.
Yeah, Thames gets a lot of praise in the review. He makes that journey from, passive victim to active survivor feel really genuine.
Believe it.
You do. And the review connects that resilience back to his home life, the sort of emotional scars he already carries. It adds this layer, this depth.
Absolutely. And then there's Gwen, Madeline McGraw. The review called her a revelation.
And you totally see why. She's got this fiery spirit, right? And that unfiltered mouth the review mentions.
Yeah.
She brings humor, but also just this raw humanity to a really dark story. She's tough, but vulnerable too. The review basically positions her as the film's emotional anchor.
The heartbeat, yeah.
Okay, but we have to talk about Ethan Hawke as the Grabber.
Oh, man,
Yeah.
yes. An unsettling performance, to say the least. The review definitely flags it as a standout.
How does it describe him?
It says he creates this villain who is somehow childlike, but also deeply sinister and just completely unstable. You never know what you're going to get.
And the masks. Designed by Tom Savini, no less. Yeah, the review mentions the masks specifically. They're not just there to hide his face. They kind of visually represent his fragmented personality, his shifting moods.
That makes sense. They change his whole presence.
Totally. And Hawke's delivery, the review points this out too. He can go from this sort of whispery kindness to sudden, terrifying rage. It constantly keeps you, the viewer, completely on edge.
Yeah, you're never comfortable when he's on screen. Okay, shifting a bit to the look and feel. The visuals are key to that whole oppressive vibe.
Definitely. And Scott Derrickson, the director, has his fingerprints all over it. The review mentions those home movie aesthetics.
Right, like the dream sequences, Gwen's visions.
Exactly. That grainy Super 8 look. It feels authentic to the 70s,
Yeah.
but it also gives you these chilling, fragmented glimpses of past horrors. The review draws a line to his earlier film, Sinister.
Oh, yeah, you can see that connection. It's got that same found footage dread almost.
And then just the general cinematography by Brett Jupkevich, it really enhances that trapped feeling. Well, the review talks about the muted colors, the sort of naturalistic lighting. It all works together to create this really oppressive, claustrophobic atmosphere, especially the basement.
Yeah, the basement itself is like a character.
For sure. Described as minimal and decrepit. It feels like a real, tangible prison, which just ramps up the tension.
Makes Finney's struggle feel so immediate. Okay, so beyond the scares and the style, the film is digging into some deeper stuff thematically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The review really emphasizes themes of abuse, isolation, and ultimately empowerment.
Empowerment, interesting. How does that come through?
Well, Finney's fight isn't just physical escape. It's symbolic, too. It's about him overcoming that emotional helplessness from, bullying his difficult father,
Yeah.
reclaiming his agency.
So the basement is more than just a basement.
Yeah, it's like a metaphor for those internal prisons, fear, trauma. And getting out represents finding that inner strength. It's a powerful arc.
And Gren's story touches on this too, doesn't it, with her father?
It does. Her relationship with their abusive dad shows how trauma hits siblings differently, maybe. But her story also highlights believing in yourself, even when people doubt you.
Okay. And the ghosts, the kids on the phone, are they just plot devices or is there more meaning there?
The review offers a really interesting take on them. It sees them as representing, like, collective resilience, solidarity.
Solidarity? How so?
Well, each spirit gives Finney a piece of the puzzle, right? Fragmented advice. Put together, it forms this tapestry of resistance, as the review puts it, that helps him survive.
So they're like a ghostly support network.
Kind of. It suggests this community, even in death, working to stop the cycle of violence. It gives their presence real weight, beyond just being spooky helpers.
That adds a lot more depth. Now, like any film, it wasn't perfect for everyone. The review brought up some criticisms too, right? Need that balanced view.
Yeah, definitely. One point was about the supernatural stuff, especially Gwen's psychic powers.
Too convenient, maybe?
Sort of. The review notes they can feel a bit underexplained and sometimes function as, convenient plot devices just to move things along, which can sometimes feel a little uneven with the more grounded thriller parts.
Right. Balancing those two tones can be tricky. What else?
Well, some people might have expected more straight-up scares. The review mentions that some could find it less frightening than expected.
More suspense thriller than pure horror.
Exactly. It leans heavily into suspense, atmosphere, character. The horror elements are definitely there, but maybe not non-stop jump scares. Setting expectations is probably important.
Gotcha. And any little logic things?
A few minor inconsistencies, as the review calls them. Things like maybe how the grabber reacts when he loses his mask at one point. Small stuff, but things that can briefly pull you out of it if you're looking closely.
Happens in a lot of films, though. So wrapping things up, what's the big takeaway from the review?
Overall, the sense is that The Black Phone is a really effective, character-driven horror film. Its strength lies in engaging you emotionally, not just trying to make you jump.
So the performances.
Ish. Especially Ethan Hawke. Plus Derrickson's distinct style and those deeper themes we talked about. All that makes it memorable, even with those small criticisms.
It definitely sticks with you. So for you listening, maybe think about that theme, resilience against really tough odds. Not just in the movie, but, how do small acts of connection or just standing your ground help overcome big challenges?
It's a powerful idea.
Yeah, something to chew on. Hopefully this deep dive... there's something about being genuinely scared by a movie, that kind of suspense.
Yeah.
It just grabs you.
It really does. And The Black Phone definitely hit that mark for a lot of people.
It totally did. So today, we thought we'd do a quick deep dive into some of the really cool stuff behind the scenes that made it work so well.
Yeah, we found some fascinating details, stuff about the villain, how it was filmed, even where the story came from.
Right, sort of a quick way to get the inside scoop. So maybe start with the grabber's look. Those masks are unforgettable.
Oh, absolutely iconic. And get this, they were designed by Tom Savini.
The Tom Savini, wow. Like Dawn of the Dead, Friday the 13th Savini.
That's the one. Absolute legend in horror effects.
So having him design the masks, that's quite something.
And it wasn't just one mask, right? There were different ones.
Yeah, different pieces almost.
And the idea apparently was that each one showed a different Well, a different part of the grabber's broken personality.
Ah, okay. So like the smile, the frown, they represented his moods.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That grin one, for example,
Mm-hmm.
it's so unsettling because it looks almost playful, but in this, horrific context, gives you insight into his warped mind.
Creepy. And speaking of context, you won't believe when they actually filmed this.
Oh, yes.
Smack bang in the middle of the pandemic.
No way. Really? With all the lockdowns and protocols.
Yep. Strict rules, the whole thing.
Huh. That might actually explain some of the film's feel.
How so?
Well, think about it. The pandemic forced smaller crews, more contained sets. It probably helped create that intense, claustrophobic feeling the movie has.
That makes sense. That feeling of being trapped, isolated. It was amplified by the real world situation.
Exactly. Sometimes those limitations, they push creativity in weird directions.
Definitely. Now, the story itself, it's not an original screenplay, is it?
No, it's based on a short story.
By Joe Hill.
That's right. And for anyone who doesn't know the name, Joe Hill is Stephen King's son.
The horror connection, it runs deep.
It really does. And you can kind of see similarities in their themes, can't you?
Yeah, like that focus on childhood trauma, kids facing down something terrifyingly supernatural.
Mm-hmm. That vulnerability, that loss of innocence, both Hill and King explore that territory so effectively.
It adds another layer, knowing that lineage. And then there's the grabber himself, Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, which was kind of surprising, wasn't it?
Totally. Because he doesn't really do outright villains that often. He's usually more nuanced, sometimes even likable.
Right. He apparently steered clear of villain roles for a long time.
So why this one?
Well, I read he just found the character, the grabber, too good to resist.
Huh. Wonder what it was. Maybe the mask, the complexity.
Could be. Maybe the challenge of playing pure evil, especially when your face is hidden half the time, makes his performance even more impactful, I think.
Definitely. And that leads to another interesting point, the team behind the camera.
Ah, the director, Scott Derrickson.
Yeah, and he worked with people he knew well from another really creepy movie.
Oh, you mean Sinister?
Exactly. He brought back his cinematographer from that, Brett Jutkiewicz, and his co-writer, C. Robert Cargill.
And that makes so much sense.
Right.
Because Sinister had such a specific, deeply unsettling atmosphere.
Right, that visual dread.
Yeah. So having that team back together, they already had a shorthand, a shared understanding of the tone they wanted.
It probably helped them nail that same eerie feeling in the black phone much quicker.
For sure. It really shows how important those creative partnerships can be, getting that consistent vision.
So when you pull it all together, you've got masks by a horror master, filming shaped by a global crisis, a story from horror royalty.
A great actor stepping way out of his comfort zone, and a tried and tested creative team reuniting.
It's like all these pieces, some planned, some maybe accidental, just came together.
It really did. And it sort of makes you think, doesn't it, about how all these different elements, artistic choices, and just plain circumstances shape the final film you watch.
Yeah, what part of it sticks with you the most now, knowing all that? Maybe something you'll look at differently next time.